welcome to Amazing
Things!
This is the podcast where we talk about amazing things.
What? It is?
It is!
Oh.
This week on the show we're talking about beer.
Beer?
Da beers.
That's what I always have a funny title on the cover page that I do. This one's amazing.
That no one sees but me when I put it up later.
The beers. Episode 8, question mark? And that was right.
Confirm?
9?
Oh.
Well, that makes sense. It's a beer episode, and we're fucking things up.
Yeah.
Now we've all had a couple.
We've all had a couple. We've all had a lot of Popeyes. We even stopped an ice cream truck.
Yep.
It has been a very good night.
I'd say we're more prepared tonight, though not on paper. No. In like actually
in spirit.
In spirits.
In spirit.
I think we can all
in
just...
spirits.
Yeah.
Huh? Drinks.
Hey,
Get it?
hey.
Let's cheers to the beer
cheers.
episode.
Cheers. Hey,
The episode where everybody knows her name.
Silent Ian. We are, of course, Galen.
Hey.
Me.
Spencer.
Kyle.
Hello.
Jim.
Me.
Ian.
Hi.
And after a break halfway through, you will meet our special guest tonight as well.
Fonz. We got the
Fonz
Fonz on
pretend
tonight.
he was here.
No, this is more official.
Let's be honest. He's not
Hey,
here yet.
that's the fun.
It's the beer episode. He's running a little late. We all got a little day drunk.
We'd also like to thank everybody for rating us on iTunes. That's going well. We're up to 7. Huzzah. You know what I'm saying?
Double
Brilliant.
digits by 2015, I believe.
Thank you for listening to all our episodes.
7, takeaway 4.
Yeah, 3.
I didn't rate anything on iTunes.
13% increase in
Some cool guy named
2014.
GraveX Titan reviewed us on
Real
iTunes.
smart guy.
Sounds pretty cool.
Don't forget to add GraveX
GraveX Titan.
GraveX Titan.
Uh-oh, Galen's tipsy.
I have an issue.
Where does beer come from?
Right into the meat of it, ladies and gentlemen. Right into the meat of it. The word beer comes from Old Germanic languages, B-I-E-R, which I will say is pronounced beer.
Beer.
Bier. Many languages have borrowed this Dutch-German word, such as bière in French, bira in Italian, bira also in Turkish, but spelled differently. And then Nordic languages don't have a word for beer, but they have a they have a word for ale, so it's all. And that is kind of where English
mead is
people
like
get
the honey beer.
Yeah, meat's good. You can get it. I have this. You can get it at like the LCBO. It comes in like a ceramic,
like a terracotta jug.
Yeah, it's cool.
Is it different than... So,
Yeah, it tastes very different.
Crazy.
It tastes like honey alcohol.
Yeah.
It's like sweet liquor.
It's the best thing to buy in gift shops and castles in England.
Liquor.
They
It's
always
like-
have their own mead.
I wouldn't say it's less like liquor and more like to me it's like a wine kind of. I don't know what to say. Like between wine
It's
and
definitely
beer
not
for
a
me.
beer.
I don't know anything about my taste buds, but it tastes good. I'd recommend it.
Out of 10?
But
All those
6.
words sound like
Okay.
beer.
6, I think.
All those words.
But guess what? This is not the mead cast. This is the beer cast. And did you guys know that almost any cereal containing certain sugars can undergo spontaneous fermentation due to the wild yeasts in the air? So therefore, it is possible that beer or beer-like beverages were independently developed throughout the world soon after a tribe or culture had domesticated cereals. So that means that let's get a little scientific. Okay.
Fucking
My
Kellogg's.
honeycomb could get me drunk?
Yeah, girl.
Okay.
Yeah. This is okay. Let's get scientific for a second, can
Okay.
we? So one of my favorite things in the world of science is convergent evolution.
Of course.
So that is
Convergence theory?
when something like wolves developed in, say, North America. In Australia, they didn't have native dogs, but then they had a marsupial that developed to look like a wolf and act like a wolf and took the wolf's role in that area because something like that best suits that. You know what I mean?
Oh.
So, this is kind of like a weird convergent evolution in a sense, in that this is just popping up all over the world because people realize, hey, wait a second, this thing's getting fermented and I like feeling fucked up.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, it was a rite of passage for in South America.
Yep.
Alcohol in general was just kind of...
So, did beer kind of spread around the world like wine sort of did? I know wine kind of spread with the spread of grapes.
Well,
beer is more of a fermentation process.
But it's
so
any cereal, which cereal grains are existent in a lot of different climates.
Yeah, but the thing is too, so the invention of bread and beer, because they kind of go hand in hand, because it's a similar process of the fermentation, and even there's an old kind of bread, shoot, I can't find
It's
it
the
off top of
best
my head.
thing since sliced bread, was
But
it?
they called it like double baked bread. But basically,
Galen's shaking his head. I think it was great.
it was terrible. It was a type of bread that was made just to make beer with, because it would like do a certain thing to like the yeast in it and stuff, and then they would make it so you would never eat it, but they would like bake it twice and then put it in to make beer.
They would probably laugh our faces off for the shit that we drink now. Like, we're sitting here now. Tonight we're drinking President's Choice Pilsner. It's
How would you rate it?
5%, 355 mil.
Pretty
Looks
cheap,
like
I
a
assume,
Coke.
too.
$10.95.
No cop
Wow.
would pull you over.
Wait, for how
this.
many?
I'll give it a 10.
And you could walk around the street like this.
Yeah,
Is
it
just
looks like a
looks like a
Pepsi.
pop.
It looks like RC Cola.
But
Yeah.
like the
And it's not
Czechoslovakian
bad.
version.
It's not a bad beer, and it's Pilsner with a Z and no vowels.
So what do you guys rate it out of 10?
It's pretty good. I give it like a 7.
I 7.5.
I like lighter beers, but I think a Viking who has been like eating or drinking
Camping beer.
double
This is
yeast
great.
bread beer would just not drink this.
I'm drinking a rich man's beer.
What's that?
I'm drinking Trois Pistoles from Unibrew, which is that Canadian? Did I make that up? Yeah.
I think it's French. Montreal.
The Texan knows that it's Canadian more than the
you.
Canadians. Thank you. But anyways, it's pretty good beer. And the thing I like the most about Unibrew, if I'm being honest, is just the design that they have on their packaging. It looks amazing.
pretty
They look like
there's-
magic cards.
There's
They're
like
amazing.
there's like a minotaur with wings that are made out of clouds
I think
flying
it's a
above a
Pegasus.
cathedral. Oh, it's a Pegasus.
Yeah, but it's awesome. So
Whoever
this is,
designed that loves metal.
so yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's
so
pretty
I'm
mellow
drinking
beer.
a Trois Pistoles. I would give this. I don't usually drink it, but it is pretty good. It's also 9% alcohol. It's not really
shit.
that expensive. And it's
Is it
homegrown.
hoppy though? Is it heavy?
No, I don't like hoppy stuff. It's good though. It's
That's my deal. That's why I always get suckered into like the pilsners and
Yeah, me too. I like the light stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
I really like pilsners. Anyways, I would give this guy. It's not something I drink all the time. I'd rather drink a pilsner, but I would give this a 7 out of 10. I think
That's pretty good.
pretty good.
As a man, I always kind of rate when I'm drinking a pilsner. In the back of my mind, I know that like the first beer drinkers, these like giant Greek Gauls, and people would just make fun of me. I feel
Oh, for sure. They're drinking.
I'm sipping a Corona with a lime.
Well,
and
they're drinking like buckets of
out of skulls.
half beer, half wine, fermented.
blood.
Yeah.
Half meth.
Half battle axe.
Half Christian blood.
Mostly battle axes and Christian blood.
But if you go back like way back in the day, I mean, they even had like gods that they would worship that they associated with brewing. And I didn't bother putting this entire list in my notes.
Who's the
it was-
patron saint? I want to. Who's the
Well,
patron saint of beer?
it kind of depends on where you go, technically speaking. So, like,
how about heaven?
Would be Jesus.
I was aiming for heaven.
but like, so like, let me see this thing. So in Europe during the Middle Ages, a brewers guild might adopt a patron saint of brewing. So it just kind of depended on the area. So like Arnulf of Metz and Arnulf of Udenberg were two pretty popular saints. So like, what's it?
Probably
so-
like in Germanic.
Yeah, but so like, what's
culture
crazy to
somewhere?
me is, and I guess because I don't have a firm grasp of religion, because I'm not that religious or anything, but like, these are real dudes. Like, these are people that lived,
Yeah.
died, became sainted, and then people were like, you know what? You're the patron saint of me making booze.
I want to do
And
that
I was like,
someday.
yeah, that
I
makes
wanna-
sense.
I want to die and someone be like, that guy was the patron saint of fucking owing Rogers a lot of money.
So these guys are like two patron saints in like Flemish and Belgian brewer kind of times.
So
in,
were
like,
they just
Middle Ages?
were they just brewers or were they actually religious figures?
I don't really know too much on them. That's
But
why I
that
fucking
was
have to do
actually
research.
intertwined. It was always monasteries that made the beers.
Yeah,
like,
once-
like Friar Tuck even in Robin Hood
yeah.
was
Historical figure Friar Tuck.
looks like I am bringing some knowledge to the table.
Did you know that?
Well known drunk.
Monks actually were responsible for really harnessing making beer with hops. So before that,
Oh.
beer was never made with hops because it was. Let me see. It was only gradually adopted due to difficulties in establishing the right proportion of ingredients. So for a long time, before we got industrialized with beer production, it was something that you would make. For your family or for like your small group of friends or something, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like a tavern would just make their own beer and that's what they'd sell there.
Yeah.
Once things kind of started becoming a little more industrialized with it, people were like, well, we can't just fucking eyeball this anymore because people are buying it because it's our brand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So these monks really got into it, and so
What was the first like commercial beer? Is that your next?
no, I don't have the very first commercial, but I have the oldest still operating commercial brewery is Weihenstephan, which you can get at like the LCBO.
Really?
It's Bavarian. But so Weihenstephan is a Bavarian abbey brewery and it obtained brewing rights from nearby town of Freising in 1040, and they still around. So 1040.
10-4, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's like 1,000 years. It's
Yeah.
insane.
That doesn't even seem like
Real
That
to
seems
me.
like
No.
a conservative guess too, though. Like if people were boozing up off of stuff before.
But no. I'm just saying, like that's the first.
That's the first commercial.
That's the longest. Yeah, so they still
brewery
exist. So the
that's still
According,
exists.
according to beerhistory.com,
That's true.
Egyptians, like ancient Egyptians, actually brewed beer commercially.
but see, like
Really?
I had like
Like
before
they
that.
sold it? Like
Yeah.
they brewed
Like
it
they
and
brewed it
sold
to
it.
sell it.
Yeah, I
Crazy.
see. I have that too. So like Chinese villagers, like 7,000 years ago, were brewing this shit.
Whoa!
When you look in the chemical test of ancient pottery
PC
jars,
Pilsner?
they reveal that beer was produced about 7,000 years ago in Iran as well. It's one of the oldest known biological, and this is pretty neat because I don't really think of beer in science, but obviously it is.
Yeah.
But because of the yeast involved, which is alive, technically speaking,
Yeah, it's a living culture.
brewing beer is one of the first known biological engineering tasks to utilize the process of fermentation.
Hey,
Isn't that crazy?
That's
Like-
an amazing thing.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, right? So, like, so there's for sure evidence of, like, 7,000 years ago, like, the Chinese and Iranians would make in Mesopotamia. The oldest evidence of beer is believed to be a 6,000-year-old Sumerian tablet depicting people drinking a beverage through reed straws from a communal bowl. 3,900-year-old Sumerian poem honoring Ninkasi, the patron goddess of brewing, contains the oldest surviving beer recipe, describing the production of beer from barley via bread. Going back to bread for a second. So, like, bread and beer have been argued to be responsible for humanity's ability to develop technology and build a civilization because they're like, oh, we need to kind of be in one place and do this, and we can start selling it, and you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
like, it all goes back to agriculture, but it really helps shape.
But beer is
What
a
happened?
real. Beer is the cornerstone of most civilized culture.
Even ancient Nubians used to use beer as an antibiotic medicine back in the day, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, so no, it was for
I
sure.
pour beer on all my wounds. I don't know. What,
Yeah, that doesn't sound like the safest option to me.
It was for sure like sold back in the day because obviously like Middle Eastern and Asiatic people were like awesome traders back in the
Yeah.
day, but it wasn't like necessarily industrialized. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'd be like a small brewery because it also didn't have preservatives in it. Anyway, so hops was super important because it's a way to preserve beer. You know what I mean? So that when they started getting industrialized, they needed something that would actually make the beer last because if without it, it wouldn't work. And so an early solution was that you could just up the alcohol content in it, but it's also super expensive. Whereas hops, if you can get it fucking right, is not that expensive. So before that, they used this thing called Gruit. Gruit is it has a couple different spellings, but that's the main way.
Gruit?
It's a mix of various herbs, and it had been used instead of hops to try to preserve things.
Probably change the flavor a lot more.
Exactly, it totally changed the flavor, so
And
it
I
wasn't
guess
that
at
great.
that point they're trying to deliver beer like hundreds of kilometers on a horse.
Exactly, so it didn't last. But then, so hops, it was first written about as far as flavoring and brewing beer in 822 by Carolingian abbots. So Carolingian,
Abbots again.
Carolingian. So it was monks. We have religious figures to thank for this. Blessed
be
be their
their
name.
be
what I
their.
said, listener.
But it was so while it was first written about in 822, hop beer was perfected in the medieval town of Bohemia in the 13th century. So it was a while before they kind of really got the knack of how much hops we put in there.
And that's also before they had like a refrigeration process too. So you forget that like now we drink beer cold.
Yeah.
But I guess it must have just been like the warmest,
Yeah.
tepid.
Gross.
Or like they just keep it in like a fruit cellar in the basement and hope it keeps
Yeah.
it
But it
slightly
wasn't.
colder than room
I don't think it was
temperature.
like a poor man's drink though. I think beer was always, because of the science involved, more of like an elite thing.
Well, like
Has
beer.
it always been snobby?
No, I think for a long time because it also provided because of the cereal that is in it. It provided a lot of the calories that people needed, and so when you weren't eating a lot, you were eating like what you could farm. You know what I mean? So you had some vegetables, you had some
A vegetable.
vegetables, you had some veggies, and then you had some meat, and then you had beer. So at one point during the Middle Ages, brewing, or I mean beer and ale, I guess, in the UK area, what we call UK now, was something that you drink at literally every meal, no matter who you were. So it's like, it was like, I'm sure that there was always like a richness to it, but I think a lot of people, especially like even like ancient Greeks and stuff, looked at beer as like more of a commoner drink, and they were more into wine and stuff like that. So beer was like, it was almost like a necessity for people. Like, yeah, you're getting these valuable calories and stuff that you need, you know?
Yeah.
And,
Well, it's funny how
Like a huge part of their diet was beer.
yeah.
when we did the coffee episode, like it's something that some people just take to such a like snobbish level, whereas it's still kind of like just the everyman's drink.
Yeah.
Even though it is for every man, like something you take a little bit of pride in.
Yeah. But you know what's also cool? So when we talk about, this is something I didn't know, this was surprising to me. So when we talk about how old beer is, and we know that people were fermenting yeast and stuff and making alcohol out of it and different cereals, whatever, as far as like 7,000 years ago. But what they were drinking, what we, like their early records of beer, is not anything like what we're drinking beer. It was like actually like a thicker, like sludgy, more like a gruel than it is a beverage. And they actually drank it with reed straws because they didn't have a way to like filter shit out. So there was all these super bitter solids left over from the fermentation process in the bottom of the cups. They had to drink with straws so you wouldn't actually put that shit in your mouth.
That's so gross.
But yeah, so there's like a really thick
gross.
kind of thing,
You gotta
you know?
chew it.
But it also makes you realize, in my brain, I'm picturing like gruel or like a porridge or something, you know what I mean? But then, so yeah, it's like a hearty thing to drink.
Yeah.
You need
It's
those
like
calories. You get
Pirates
that.
called it grog, and I looked into like what grog's deal kind of was.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
is it?
And what was basically the same thing was like they couldn't preserve beer long enough on ships for
Right.
like long voyages, so they made this like super high alcohol content, super thick, like not even filtered, like you were saying, beer that was kind of like a sludge that was grog.
Yeah, you just get you fucked up.
And it of course like evolved as all liquors do,
Yeah.
whether they be toilet wines or prison grog.
I actually had no idea that hops, and this is just me being stupid, I had no idea that hops was in it as a preserving mechanism. Did you guys know
No,
that?
neither did I.
I just assumed it was part of the brewing process, or it just made it
I
taste
thought it was
good.
flavored, yeah.
Yeah, but it's actually part of the preserving thing.
They're a huge, like I was just looking up now, like there's a huge because beer is such a huge thing now, like home brewing is such a big thing.
Yeah.
There's so many craft beers.
Yeah.
Hops are hugely important. Everyone needs hops to make beer.
Right.
So there's trade shows all over the world where people go to buy hops.
Crazy.
Like, people come to Canada from all over the world to buy hops because we make hops here. But it's like a huge deal. There's a huge hop shortage from all these craft beers. Like, the price of hops has risen over 50% in the last year.
How do you grow hops?
Yeah, I assume it's just like a cereal that you grow.
It's like a grain. Yeah, it's a grain.
But
that's
there's
grown.
there's an actual shortage of it.
I thought
Yeah,
hops
well,
was
it
more
needs-
like
it needs a
rice as a
certain-
grain, where it needed like a wet sort of patty.
I think so. Like, it needs a certain climate to grow in. It needs a very specific season. So if there's a bad season for it, and I think there has been in the last few years, the price goes way up. because
just
there's
like coffee
not
with
as
the
much.
belt bean.
But see, like, and I don't know, in theory, I get that coffee beans, I know we talked about it in the coffee episode, coffee beans taste different, and hops, I assume, have a different flavor or whatever, but, like, in my brain, I don't fucking get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know how dumb that sounds, but, like, I'm not a big coffee drinker, but I don't think I've ever tried one coffee and then had another one and be like, whoa, this bean is fucking awesome! It's just like, yeah, it's a cup of coffee.
But you've done
I
that
get
with
it.
beer.
Yeah, but when I have it with beer, it's almost always because they've added something to it. I don't know, like I'm picturing like that banana bread beer that you can get at the LCBO.
Yeah.
I fucking love that beer. It tastes exactly. It's like I don't usually like. It tastes exactly like banana bread.
That's
I
so
don't
weird.
usually like flavored beers because I just think they make me sick after a couple sips. But I could actually drink banana bread beer.
Fuck.
But in that, it's because they added a shit ton of flavors to it. Bananas, probably. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, in my mind, it's not like, oh,
weird.
you used a specific hop that just happens to say banana bread. It's like, no.
Well,
like,
it was the Bavarian Purity Act that states like there eventually came a point where because of like the preservative shortage and the need to like always up the game on how you can preserve beers,
Yeah.
there was the Bavarian Purity Act. I don't know if you guys know or have a year when that happened, but I
read about it. I can't, I
But,
don't know if I have it.
But it just states that there can only be 4 ingredients to a beer, right?
Yeah.
There's like hops, yeast,
barley.
and water,
Yeah.
I guess, and that's it. But then Molson Canadian has something like, I think it's like 80 to 100 ingredients in it.
It's crazy.
Just because, again,
Molson
like you can.
shitty Canadian.
But that's the thing is like after the world ends, if you find beer anywhere, you're not going to be like, oh great, a steam whistle, because
Yeah.
that's going to be awful.
Yeah.
But you see that Pabst lying there,
Still
still good.
Do you know what I didn't realize either? And this is, So, like, I didn't drink for a long time. I drank when I was, like, up until I was, like, 16, 17. Then I
Got too punk rock.
I got too punk, and I didn't drink from, like, 17 to 28.
Yeah.
And so, like, I still don't even drink that much. Like, the most I usually drink is, like, when I drink with you guys for doing these podcasts.
Yeah.
Like, it's not something that I'm that into, even though I like the taste of beer, and I like ciders, and I like stouts a lot. But I didn't even realize, so there's, like, a lot of stuff that seems, like, shockingly new to me, and maybe it's new to the rest of the world, too. Because I feel like beer is something that you kind of take for granted to a certain extent. You're just like, oh, yeah, it's a beer, whatever. But I didn't even realize that ale and lager were different things, technically. Like, so ales use top fermenting yeast, and lagers use bottom fermenting yeast. So they use totally different yeast.
Well, I had no.
So it's it's just like different scientific process.
Yeah, but so
different...
but when you look at them, so like a stout or like a dark ale, and you think of like amber ale and stuff like that, Bocks, bitters, basically anything with the suffix Weizen at the end, are all ales. So like the darker things are ales, but then you get stuff like Pilsners and Dunkels and Doppelbocks and stuff like that. And the most popular type of beer in North America is anything like lighter. Like you see like a Molson Canadian type thing. Those are all lagers,
yeah.
Which makes sense because like I guess I know what a lager is, but in my brain I was never like, oh yeah, lager and ales are different. Like it just like
Crazy.
Yeah, so they're totally different processes.
Huh.
I just found out that one of the oldest receipts ever,
Yeah.
like the oldest receipt that exists for a sale of something, is for beer. It's called the Aluluir receipt.
Yeah, I saved a picture of it on my
records a purchase of best beer from a brewer in 2050 BC
Yeah.
from the Sumerian city, also one of the oldest dead languages, Sumerian,
Crazy.
Yeah.
of Umma in ancient Iraq.
Yeah, I
And
saved a
the
picture of
back
that the other day. It's really neat.
It's just a
looking.
rock.
Yeah, it's
with,
just a rock
marks
with little
in it.
lines in it. But it's crazy. It's a
Crazy.
receipt for a beer transaction.
The rock was a clay.
Let's not get into the
Geology? Oh, God.
geography. This is neither the geography nor
Texan
geology.
pulled my
podcast.
Card again. Anyways, when we get into geology, we'll talk about that. But yeah, I don't know what it is. It's a rock. It's clay tablet, maybe.
Is it clay tablet or is it rock?
This is gonna really bother us. It bothers listeners. It's the what? How do you pronounce the receipt?
Oh, I don't know.
Because like cuneiform and stuff, they do it into a piece of soft clay.
Could be that.
Terracotta kind of stuff.
Yeah, and
Yeah, it's a
lot of
terracotta
times-
soldier.
Yeah, it's terracotta soldier.
holding a brewski in his
But
hand.
it's one of those weird things where, like, in a library of things on paper, if it burns up, you lose everything. But if it's a library of clay tablets, they just harden and stay around forever.
Right. It could be that. I mean, it's like
Teach a man to
thousands
fish.
and thousands of years old. You know what I mean? But it's neat that one of these super old surviving records is a beer transaction. And it shows us how important. Well, I don't know if that shows how important beer was. It just shows.
I
that
think the
someone
whole
had a
history of
receipt,
beer
but-
shows, like, in 1760, when the thermometer was invented, that became, like, a critical point for brewers, because now it was also around the time of the Industrial Revolution, when beer as a commodity was being, like, shipped worldwide, and it was one of the first times that, like, international beer sales were happening.
Right.
And again, with preservatives, we were talking about that. But yeah, apparently a bunch of brewers just had to, like, really up their game because now thermometers existed, and that was like the crazy revolution.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I bet that was like when MP3 started existing.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
people were like, "What the fuck? What's this new technology? These robots are taking our jobs."
Can't tell me what temperature it is.
I think it's neat too that like so the Middle Ages saw like the brewing industry in Northern Europe change from like a small scale domestic industry to this large scale export industry thanks to hops, and they can now preserve these things. But then you also have like. And so there's in the Guinness World Book of Records, they list a certain pub in England as the oldest pub in England. Guess how old this place is recorded to be?
How old?
So it's called Ye Old Fighting Cocks in St Albans, Hertfordshire, and it can trace its origins to 793. Isn't that
That's
insane?
crazy.
So it's on its current location though, as of
Is that a
1539.
fucking year or a locker number?
But because it's in its current location since 1539, but even that's fucking super old. There's actually two other pubs in England. This one, the second one I think is the coolest pub name I've ever heard. But so this one place called Ye Old Man in Sight, it was first recorded by name in 1252, which is super old for a fucking bar.
Yeah.
But then another place, even older than that, is called Ye Old Trip to Jerusalem, which I just think is
Are these
awesome
all in
name
England?
to our- yeah.
Of course.
So
yeah.
Ye Old Trip to Jerusalem actually they can't quite prove it. It's argued, but it says it was founded in 1189.
of it.
But like,
yeah.
and even like this thing from like 1539 is insane.
Goes to show that people have been drinking beer forever.
Hooray! And our guest is here. And so we're going to just take a quick break now, a little musical interlude, give you guys a chance to go to the washroom, go brush your teeth, go brush your beard and your back hair, look at Tinder, and then you come right back and we have a special guest for you guys. So welcome back to Amazing Things Beercast episode. We would like to now introduce our special guest who came from a while away to be here.
You took a go bus.
You took a go bus. Your name is Fonz, but do you want to tell everyone at home? You can tell them your name, you can tell them what you do, and tell us a bit about your job.
My name is Alfonso Suarez. Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Just a big beer enthusiast, pretty much.
Good.
Working at the LCBO, I'm the beer guy there, so we kind of do a lot of imports stuff, talk to reps, bringing in whatever we kind of really want. And yeah, I took a beer course through Brewers Association of Canada, so
That's awesome.
I guess I'm a certified beer dude.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what is that? What happens?
So
with this
yeah,
beer
when you
course?
say you're the beer rep, you're like a beer advocate through the LCBO.
Absolutely, yeah.
In what way? So like, are you telling them different brands to bring in and stuff like that?
So in Canada, how we kind of how we distribute, you have the brewers and then you have importers.
Okay.
So importers, they can, I don't know, you got big companies kind of like Anheuser-Busch, who's now bought up by Interbrew, or AB InBev now.
Who do they all own?
They're pretty much global distribution in terms of
News Corp.
yeah, pretty much, yeah, just like too big to fail, man.
Lex Luthor's
Yeah.
business. in
So
beer.
yeah, those guys started in Belgium pretty much, and they bought up Interbrew, like pretty much Ambev in South America. So they're connecting all the dots, global distribution, pretty much.
Okay.
So where
So
do you come in? You're
yeah,
like
do
the
you, like-
cartel guy.
Do you get to like
Pretty
pick
much.
the brewers? Like I'm sure there's a million craft brewers who make beers who want them in the LCBO. You work for the LCBO. Are you like the screener person?
Yeah, can we also say that Ontario, I feel, is like the toughest place for
It's a
brewers to
huge-
get their thing into, like
Yeah.
where we sell our beer.
Toughest place in Canada, or just like, is
I
it
don't
much
know.
tougher than like the States and stuff? I mean, I don't know. If
I
you
feel
can
like
touch
it
on
is.
the US.
I
I
think-
don't know what you know about it.
I don't
so.
know.
Let's
Yeah.
find out.
Well, pretty much like in Canada, so we have just importers, right? Whereas in the States, it's controlled by, I would imagine, like the big names, pretty much. So
Right.
like you're looking at Miller, Coors,
Yeah.
Anheuser-Busch.
Right.
Whereas in like other countries, I guess it's the little guys that can kind of represent themselves.
Shivets.
Yeah, all the Polish beers.
Yeah.
So that's, for
Right.
instance, like something
Can
like
you
that.
pronounce that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
amazing
yeah.
thing!
It's pronounced Shivets.
Shivets.
And
What
Tiskia.
the fuck?
Tiskia? Is that
That's
how
the
you
other
pronounce
good one,
it?
yeah.
Oh, that's what I like Tiskia, but I
Yeah.
don't know how to pronounce it. So I was just like, yeah, give me that one, please.
That's a really tough thing at bars when you're like, yeah, I'll have one of the yeah, one of the, and then you end up with just
They know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah.
I had a Polish bartender. It's Polish, right?
Yeah,
Is that what it is?
yeah.
I had a Polish bartender once like say it for me, and was really stern about correcting it. And within seconds, I was just like, "Don't remember. Can I just have another one, please?" I'm sorry.
I'll get a bud.
Yeah. So sorry, keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt.
But yes, just so in Canada, so something like Giviettes or Legist, like you want to, like there's a company that kind of promotes them, so they have portfolios and they can carry certain beers, right? So for LCBO, you can't really just request something nice from like a European company. You know, you have to have somebody here carrying it or representing it.
So you can't go directly to the brewer from the LCBO
Well, actually, there's that happening
on an
too,
international.
where like the brewer will pay for like a spot in the LCBO, so they can directly say, "Hey, man, would you like to carry Cameron's Rybach or something like that? Their new stuff."
But you still have to approve it, yeah? I assume, like, do they give you samples and stuff, and you'd be like... Because, I mean, if they give you something, you're like, this tastes like shit. Like, we don't
Yeah.
care that you're a big company, you fucked up on this brew. Like, will you still carry it?
Well, for me, it's like I can say yay or nay kind of thing. 'Cause
Right.
we're, like if we said yay to everything, then the shelf would kind of
Right.
be everybody
Right.
be a big shit show pretty much.
Right.
So it's kind of like real estate that the LCBO rents out to the brewers.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's crazy.
So what
I
kind
didn't
of-
look at it that way.
What do you learn about in the course that you took? Like, what kind of things did they teach you?
Pretty much like where beer came from, all your ingredients, and into what you use to brew. We learned about brewing, and it's kind of like setting up draft lines and stuff like that. How to like pouring techniques, like everything. It was fucking wicked. Yeah.
You never have to clean a draft line.
Yeah. No, don't clean it.
We're from Uxbridge, sir.
It's more character. Yeah.
Do you brew at home or anything? Or?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Made a porter, chocolate coffee porter. It was
Cool.
pretty tasty.
Cool. I love chocolate coffee flavored stouts and porters. And
Absolutely.
Are there?
full beers? Yeah.
Am I right in thinking that like home brewing, be it a fun exercise, was not always like the safest thing to do? I was looking at something about like the dangers of home brewing.
Oh yeah, man. If you're brewing like huge batches, I guess like what is it? I guess it would be like CO2, like emissions.
Really?
I don't know if it's CO2.
Yeah,
It's
there
something.
were like
just like
records.
gas leaks?
There's harmful gases.
During Prohibition, there was like records of dudes who were just like making huge amounts of home brew, and they had to have it covered because like temperatures and leaves were messing up their taste, and clients were complaining. Somebody found them just all dead, just like unconscious, lying around. Yeah, it was like Jonestown, pretty much.
Oh.
Can I tell you a funny anecdote? Not necessarily related to beer, but very similar to what just happened.
Okay.
So my grandpa was a carpenter by trade. And so way back in the day, he was working on what was at the time just called an insane asylum. Because this is in like the 40s, I guess. He would have been a young man, maybe even in the 30s. Anyways, so he was working in this place, and they had to put in new floorboards in this place. And so it was this big. It was back in the day when they just had like big open rooms with like rows of beds. So he was on one end, and at the other end, some guy just popped the floorboard up because put in new hardwood. And as soon as he did that, everyone just started dropping like flies, just boom, 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 coming towards him, and everyone just kind of like, whoa, what's happening? And next thing you know, he was unconscious. And then he woke up, and what had happened was people were just, because they used stuff like sawdust and stuff to insulate, people just peeing on the ground, and the sawdust was trapping all these gases in there.
Ooh.
And so as soon as they popped out, all this, I guess, like methane and stuff just went whoosh, up in
That's
everyone's
crazy.
face, and the entire room just fainted, like just passed out immediately. Isn't that insane? So that is trapped gases! Amazing! Nothing to do with beer. Although maybe some of them drank beer.
Hey, that is
I wonder if
dangerous.
it'll
Like,
make the
that's-
cut.
Yeah, who knows if it'll make the cut? Galen is, he's iffy on it. That'll be on the piss episode, ladies and gentlemen.
Save that nugget for later.
Save that. So, okay, let's just talk. Can we talk about the most expensive beers right now? Because I feel like this is something that you probably have to deal with.
Oh yeah.
Well, because I was wondering if beer was always like a rich man's thing because of the science behind it, but it always is. It's like there's Schlitz. It's not a rich man's thing. Schlitz exists. OE exists. It's also very much the poor man's drink.
That's the thing. And now it's kind of considered the poor man's drink, I think, but it's also a very it can be a crazy expensive thing.
Crazy
I've got the top 10 expensive beers.
Let's hear
Yeah, I filtered out some of that. But
Name
yeah,
and
you go.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
Start at the bottom, and we'll talk about
Okay,
this.
well, there's Sapporo Space Barley, which is $110 for a 6-pack. 5.5 to 2006. Japanese and Russian scientists tested how well barley could grow in space.
Yeah.
They rocketed barley seeds to the International Space Station
Yep.
and planted them aboard the Zveda service module. After spending 5 months in orbit, the 4th generation of barley was brought back to Earth, where Japanese brewer Sapporo fermented it in the world's first space beer. A 6-pack costs $110.
Do you have, before we go on to the next one, do you have the Tutankhamun Ale?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay. I had that listed before that.
That's my number 3.
Oh, really? We have different lists?
Going
sir?
down. So that's
Whoa.
like number 7, right? Tutankhamun. So, in 1990, Cambridge archaeologist Dr. Barry Kemp
Yep.
unearthed the Queen Nefertiti's royal brewery. He found 10 brewing chambers buried underneath the Egyptian sand. Each contained traces of ancient beer residue. With the help of an electron microscope, fellow scientist Dr. Delwyn Samuel analyzed the residues to quantify the 3,250-year-old recipe. The researchers teamed up with a Scottish brewer. The first bottle was sold for $7,866.
Yeah, insane.
Wow.
That's nuts.
The next bottle, now they're sold for $75.
Oh, I have 52, just
Yeah.
because the demand was dropping.
Because it's not worth.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's
No,
not good.
Nobody gives
at
a shit.
all.
Why do you want to pay
And nobody gives a shit.
$8,000?
Exactly.
It's mummy beer.
It's
Yeah.
mummy beer.
They
so
actually
it's all
put-
just names.
They actually tried to put in each batch trace amounts of ancient beer residue in it to be like, whoa, cool. And
Yeah,
it's
I know.
like,
People
what am I,
got
fucking
some-
Indiana Indiana Jones. I'm
You're
not paying
drinking some
$8,000.
history, man. That's
Yeah.
history, dude.
What am I, Brendan
Would
Fraser?
Would you pay? I mean, I'm not. I don't even mean like if you were a millionaire, but like if you could afford it, would you spend $8,000 on a single bottle of beer?
Once.
Was
No.
there a girl there watching me? Was there the hottest
If I was
girl
like
ever?
Kanye West, then maybe. But if I was even just like, if I just had like, my shit together, I would not spend $8,000 on a single bottle.
would
That's
you?
very much like a 1990s mentality. Like,
Oh, like
It's still-
$10,000 Zima?
Oh, no.
Sure.
And there's also
in the
that-
White House,
There's
no
also
problem.
a stigma to it. Like I don't know. I could understand like if I was a filthy rich person to spend that much on like a crazy bottle of scotch or like something. I don't know, but beer.
It's just so blue collar in my mind, and I guess.
I'm gonna drink it. Like it's
Okay.
just something that you're just gonna drink. You're not gonna save a beer.
And I'm not saying blue collar in a bad way. I just.
But I guess
Oh,
you're shaking your head.
I'm
like,
shaking my head. No,
You
but
save
can,
a beer?
You can age beer, man. Like you can
Really?
sit on a beer like a bottle of wine, and it'll just mature in age.
Really?
Like,
depending
yeah,
on how it's made, though, right? Like, you can't.
Absolutely, yeah. You're not gonna throw a Budweiser in the fridge and fucking age it for 3 years.
But are all beers capable of being preserved for that long?
We were just arguing, actually, like, if at the end of the world, when you're like
Yeah. We
were arguing
Kevin,
this?
Who would it be? Kevin Spacey, probably.
Yeah.
Last
Yeah.
remaining human.
Probably.
You're wandering
Makes
the world like you wouldn't
Kaiser
pick up. You
Soze.
wouldn't pick up like Kaiser Soze. You wouldn't pick up a steam whistle because it'd be all skunked and shitty.
Absolutely.
Whereas like a Molson Canadian would probably still be okay.
No, I don't know. Man. There's a best before date. I think this.
Does all beer have best before dates?
But yeah, man, absolutely. Yeah.
But does wine have a best before date?
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Like,
guess
you can
it
pick
all
up a
depends.
100-year aged bottle of wine, and it's just it wouldn't be what it would because
Oh,
there's a
shit.
prime, right?
So then why do people like super old wine like that?
I think it's always because it's just like
Old.
it's this elitist kind of.
Right.
It's also
how,
harder-
how I feel.
It's
Yeah,
harder
yeah,
for
I
a
agree.
longer period to maintain because like a wine,
Yeah.
like the cork itself can deteriorate, ruin
Right.
the whole bottle.
social
keep it in
status
the
as
wrong
well, too.
temperature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's-
I've heard that about like there's really old rare bottles of like Dom Perignon where they
Yeah.
age them for hundreds of years,
Yeah.
but it's like if the corks are just fucking cork,
Yeah.
and if they aren't stored in the perfect temperature, at the perfect time
yeah.
forever, then they'll deteriorate so quickly,
Right.
and the champagne's ruined
Right.
immediately,
Absolutely,
like
yeah.
so quickly. So there are that's why it's so expensive because
Right.
there's so few
So-
bottles that are ever.
so what
preserved
else
like
is
that.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Okay, I'm gonna take it down to the last three because this
Okay.
one's fucking crazy. Number 8 is Brewdog's The End of History.
Oh yeah.
It's 55% alcohol and
Holy.
it's $765 for a bottle.
Because
Because this is the
check
kicker.
this out. Okay, so it's 110 proof and okay, only 12 bottles exist and each is made out of a taxidermied roadkill.
Yeah.
7 weasels,
I have
4
a-
squirrels,
Yeah.
and 1 hare.
And they put little suits on them and everything.
Yeah.
So the bottle
Not
is
all of
basically
them.
just coming out of its mouth.
Yeah.
No,
I know this is not a video
I've
podcast,
got a-
so you can't see it.
I've got a picture.
Oh, I have a different picture, but yeah, we can post those on
We've
our
all got
Facebook
pictures.
page.
amazing.
That
it is amazing.
Amazing.
I saw
things.
that beer ages ago and I just couldn't figure out.
You saw it in a store?
No, it
No
was
way.
No, there's 11 bottles of
it was
it.
a photo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't fathom. Like even the Game of Thrones beer that's like,
This is a Game of Thrones beer?
yeah, man.
There's been 3.
There's been 3.
What the fuck? Really?
I've
Yeah.
had the start one.
Yeah, the
I'm
Star
actually
Pale.
sitting on one right now. I'm aging the Take the Black Stout right now.
Oh, that was the most
Ooh.
recent one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much do
Daenerys
these
one
cost
was the
at,
most
say, the
expensive.
LCBO? How
They're
much?
The, yeah,
More
the
than
new
a
one
beer
that's in
should
stores
cost.
right now.
Oh, we're
for
talking
the
like
Daenerys one, yeah.
$20 or
No, like 13.
That one's good, man.
Okay,
For,
well,
spicy.
I'll get one.
Yeah.
I went bananas when I saw that Tom Green had a beer, and I didn't even like it. I was so
Ugh.
stoked on
The
it.
Really?
I didn't like
It's
the
a
yeah,
milk
it's a
stout.
Bose
Yeah.
beer.
Oh,
Yeah.
fuck that.
Wasn't
I
into
dug it. I dug it.
I usually like beers like that, and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome!"
Yeah.
So I popped it open that night, and I had like I poured a glass of it. And I was just like, I don't like this. I don't like it at all. I was so bummed.
Yeah.
I love Tom Green. I just can't
Yeah.
drink it.
The Bose, man, like honestly,
I
their
like Bose.
advertising is great. Like,
Yeah.
like you look at the bottle and you're like, I'm ready to have
The
a
design's
fucking wicked
great.
beer.
You know, like their art on it and stuff. It sells
Yeah.
it. It's cool.
And everybody knows that Lug Tread is like one of the most solid beers.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it
such an
is.
easy go-to.
They're riding on
Yeah.
these coattails where it's just like now there's so many good beers out there
Yeah.
that Bose is just like they're they're making all these really cool styles, but they're not really hitting. That
Founded
high
by
notes that
like an
everyone
Aurora Newmarket punk band.
Really? Didn't
Yeah,
I
it
know
was
that?
like the
That's
dad
fucking
who
hilarious.
founded it, I guess Bo or whatever. He was in like a
Yeah,
Newmarket
I know his
Aurora
name
punk
is
band,
shit.
and then like all
What's the
his
name of the
kids
band?
and friends.
Yeah.
No one cares
Anybody
what
know?
the band is
I know
called.
that. I know that one of the
Yeah,
guys
they're
from
from Dirty Bird.
no, one of the guys from Constable Brennan.
Constable Brennan.
Remember them back in the day?
But like
They had, like,
every
worked
member
for
of that brewery, like there's a guy
And he
whose
scores when the
only
guy
job is
scores.
like the tap.
Yeah.
Or, like,
Played at Galen's
the
birthday
boss.
party.
Yeah. So what's
So
your,
that was number
what's your
8.
next
Yeah,
top?
well,
That was number 8. Okay, number 9. Okay, you
Is
wouldn't.
it Utopia's on there?
Oh, I have Utopia on here.
Is that the Past Blue Ribbon?
I have the Sam Adams Utopia.
That's what.
I
It's the
have
most
that as number
expensive-
7.
That's the most expensive beer ever from an American brewer.
Yeah.
This was Pabst Blue Ribbon, number 9.
What do you have from Pabst Blue Ribbon?
It's $44 a bottle, but
That
it's
doesn't sound like a lot
That
compared
doesn't
to
look like a
it's a
Pabst,
Pabst
man.
Blue Ribbon that's only sold in China.
That's the
Well, that's the ultimate hipster beer.
You can't
And
buy
you
it
can only get it
anywhere.
from
What's it
Chinese
called?
slave
You-
labor.
It's the Pabst Blue Ribbon 1844.
Huh.
It's the Mercedes-Benz of beers, $44 like for a tiny bottle of it. Chinese PBR costs 44 times more than what's sold in the States. It's not the same one. PBR 1844 is made from German caramel malts. It's aged in uncharred American whiskey barrels, and even comes in a fancy glass bottle.
I hate whiskey flavored beer. Can I say that?
like Innocent
yeah.
Gun.
Ugh, I fucking
I kinda like
it. Wretched. I thought I was gonna be into it, and I got it. Like the first time I had Innocent Gun, I was like, "Oh, this sounds cool." I was like telling like the caramel flavors to it and stuff, and I took a big chug of it, thinking I was gonna like it, and I was just like, "No,
Oh,
not
no,
finishing
man.
this bottle."
It's all
That's a
taste
sipping
oriented.
beer, yeah.
But even and maybe it's just because I don't like those flavors on their own, you know. But I just thought incorporated into a beer, I'd enjoy it.
Do you guys want to hear the most
Yeah,
offensive?
let's see if we
which
have the
is
same
the
thing.
most fucking offensive fact I've ever heard.
What
on
is
this
it
show
called?
or
Okay,
anywhere in my
okay.
life.
Oh, shit.
We got kids listening.
Number 10, Nails Brewing Antarctic Nail Ale.
Oh, I have a different thing.
Do you know who makes this?
Who?
Whale Wars. Do you
Whale
know the
Wars.
show Whale
I didn't know
Wars?
they
Yeah,
made that. I read about this beer too, but I didn't know
The
they made
Sea
that.
Shepherds.
Huh.
They make this beer. It's 10% alcohol. It's not made from animals. This pale ale is made for animals. Concocted by Nail Brewing in Perth, Australia. 100% of the profits go to the Sea Shepherds. They're people who. Do you guys know the Sea Shepherds?
Yeah, that's the guy from
Whale
Greenpeace
Wars.
who split off and
Yeah, yeah.
did his own thing.
Yeah.
Tom Shepard.
Is that his name? I don't know.
They
Shepherd.
so they flew their helicopter.
Shepherd pie.
They flew their helicopter out to the Antarctic,
Yeah.
landed on an iceberg,
Yeah, it's absurd.
dug out some ice, melted it, flew it to Tasmania, brewed it, and then made 30 bottles. And they're auctioning them off. The first one went for 800, and the second went for 1800.
That is
For a
in no
bottle.
way green.
Of-
And but they try to
not at
market
all.
it as like so pure, it's so old from this old iceberg. It's like fuck you.
Horrible.
I actually have a different beer as the most expensive.
So how much was yours, Jim?
1800.
I have two really expensive beers that you didn't list. One is called Schorsbach 57 by Schorsbrau in Germany. It costs $275 for a 330 milliliter bottle, and it claims to be the strongest beer in the world. Guess what the alcohol percentage in this beer is?
34%.
80.
57.5.
57, Jesus Christ.
57.5. Only
That's too much.
Only 36 bottles were ever made, but the way, this is interesting to me, and just because I don't know anything about the brewing process, but the way that they got such a high alcohol percentage is that they froze it to a very specific temperature so that the water would separate, and then they cut out the water and put, and like,
Crazy.
fry.
And then just keep doubling the
Yeah.
process?
Yeah. So 57.5% beer.
Whoa.
When I have those like Fax Strongs, those like gross shitty black
10%.
tall cans,
Yeah.
those fuck me up. A
Or
fucking
Max Ice.
57.5?
Yeah.
I'll go blind.
Yeah, but then you're just like, you can't drink it like it's a beer. You gotta be like, this is my
No.
whiskey now.
You have to like a thimble and I'd be fine.
Yeah.
But the other really expensive beer that I
Shots
have
and get crazy.
is called Vieille Bon Secours, and it's an ale from Belgium in a 12-liter bottle costs $1,165.
Whoa.
And it's an old beer, and like they like made very few of them, and the story was kind
That's
of
got to be
confusing.
another like existing abbey kind of thing.
Yeah, it was, and it was something that like they did a certain brew, and then they didn't think it existed anymore, and then they found a bunch of bottles, and they're like, "Ta-da!
Yeah.
$1,100, sir!" And
You
it's mental.
There were actually a lot of like the Germans during World War II were famous for just hoarding things, art, gold, everything. And I forget, I think it was Goering or Goebbels who had like this extensive wine and beer collection that was in this huge underground bunker that like nobody knew about until the end of the war, where they opened it up. I think they were looking for paintings, kind of like in the Monument Men.
Yep.
And they just found this giant wine cellar, and it actually became a point of contest between like the Russians and the Allied forces who would like own it. And it was mostly wine, but there were bottles of beer apparently that like still exist today. And it's also kind of like the efficacy of blood diamonds, right? Like trading something that has like such a bloody history. But like again, like a monastery in like Germany will be like, oh, ta-da! Where did these come from?
I have a list of this is from 2011, so it might be different now, but I feel it's fairly recent, of the most popular beers in the world as far as sales go.
Let's quiz our experts.
Okay.
Guess
Yeah,
the top
quiz.
three.
Well, this is the number one most popular beer I had never heard of in my life. But give me you start naming some, and I'll tell you if they're on here.
I'd say
maybe
Budweiser
Stella?
would be on
Stella?
there.
Is that on there?
Nope.
No way.
Same
No.
Calorie on there?
No, I thought it would be. It's not.
Heineken?
Heineken is number 6.
Holy fuck.
Lucky?
Not
No.
lucky.
Actually, Kyle
Gotta
said-
be Coors
Kyle
Light.
said Budweiser.
Maybe
Oh, I
No,
did
you
say
did?
Budweiser.
Oh yeah, Budweiser's number 3.
What's that? What's the
Oh.
Chinese beer? What's the?
Tsingtao.
No, but there's
Tiger?
another
Qingdao.
Chinese
It's like
beer.
it's like Sung Ting or something, right? It's like
There's a totally different Chinese beer.
it's some
I've never heard
Ting,
of. You
Yang
can't
Jin?
really get it outside of
Hold on,
China.
we got 2 on the
Okay.
list so far.
Okay, keep
What
going.
else?
There's another there's 3 on this list that I had never heard of, but because they're just like not from our part of the world, you know. Okay, so keep going.
Yangjin?
Nope.
No. Acai?
Acai?
Yeah.
Acai.
That's on there?
Acai
No way.
Super Dry
Yeah.
is number 10. I'm surprised, and I'm going to spoil this right now. Sapporo's not on this list. I picture that when I think of a good Japanese beer because I like Sapporo, but it's not on this
I
list.
think it's the more expensive version of Acai.
It
right?
totally is,
Yeah.
but I just
Acai is
picture it to be
the
more popular.
Budweiser.
Yeah, totally,
Yeah.
totally is. Yeah.
Well, I always thought Živec would be more popular, but everyone says like if you're Polish, you drink Tiskiet. Who knows?
Okay, so guess what? Okay, number 9 on this list. So Acai is number 10. Number 9, it's a Brazilian beer. Never heard of it.
Bavaria?
Brahma.
Brazilian.
No, the beer.
No.
I believe it's no.
It's called Brahma.
yeah, it's
Oh,
what it
yeah,
is.
Brahma, yeah.
Did you say it?
No, I said Brava.
Brava. The beer of summer?
Yeah.
Keep looking
Bavaria,
at your
Bavaria.
list.
That's what I said.
Brava.
So yeah,
Brahma.
Brahma,
Brahma.
which I'd never heard
Okay.
of, but it's the 9th most popular beer in
It's
the world
okay.
because it's
Yeah,
huge
good
in
beer.
Brazil.
Nice.
So number
So they got like South America's market like tapped then.
totally.
Yeah.
So there's another beer made by Carlsberg, which I'd never heard of as well. Number 5, you want to scroll down on your list, Galen? Called Skol, Skol.
No, I don't know.
Made by Carlsberg, but it's huge in South America and Africa. So it's this beer that like tons of people worldwide are drinking. It's just we
Just we
don't
don't
know
have
it in
it.
North America.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so the other things on here, I'm just going to get through this. Miller Lite is number 8. Coors Light is number 7. Heineken 6. Skol is 5. Corona Extra is 4, which is surprising to me.
Really?
So I thought like only
Could've
like
said
People buy
Corona.
shit
Yeah,
ton of beer
that's
and buy
always
it,
like
too.
people who don't know beer. They're like, "Oh, I'm celebrating."
Yeah.
Corona.
Yeah.
Well, they
Put
have
the lime
Corona
in there.
all over the world.
They're also,
they have
like-
it in
like
all
Prince.
through the Caribbean.
Yeah,
like that's what the
absolutely.
Heineken.
and I feel like that's what like cool dads at the cottage drink.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Or like Prince giving away his records.
I don't fucking get it.
Oh, Dad, you got Coronas. Cool.
Yeah, or like bros. You know what I mean? Like bros
Yeah,
on
bros.
the beach drink that
Yeah.
shit.
Honey,
They also-
did you pick up the Coronas?
We have
Is that your
guests.
bro voice? Because you failed.
He really did.
that's-
I'm like,
No, I'm in the
You gotta
Hamptons.
be a
I'm in the
douchebag voice who
Hamptons.
sits with bro voice.
Dee Dee.
number 3. Anyone? Budweiser. Oh, you said it.
Budweiser.
Yeah.
Number 2 is Bud Light.
Oh, really?
But number 1 from China, it's called Snow Beer. and it sells
looks
about.
tasty, just
It sells.
from the label.
It's twice as popular as Bud Light. So Bud Light is second, but this sells twice as much as second place. Just such a huge gap.
And
I don't have
just
the
in
numbers on
China,
this.
probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just humongous in China. There's a fuck ton of people in China. It just sells like crazy. I'm sure you can get it other places in Asia as well. But.
I was looking into the histories of companies,
Yeah.
and it's surprising the amount that, like, now we look at, like, established beer companies, and, like, it's a huge, like, the ones you listed have huge breweries.
Yeah.
I mean, Molson Canadian not on that list, but again has just a huge, like, people growing
Oh,
weed in their breweries.
I was
They don't
surprised
even
that
use
that
it.
wasn't on the list. But, yeah.
But like a
Grow
lot
up,
of it
yeah.
happened like World War II, like
Right.
then and after, like again, like past like another sort of industrialization period
Right.
where people were turning again to leisure, and the prohibition was done and everything. I forgot.
Do you guys want to talk about Prohibition?
Yeah, we should.
Prohibition
We
is
should.
neat, but this is so something I didn't realize. Like when you think of Prohibition, I know that the term isn't specific to the American Prohibition of alcohol. I know that the word exists outside of that, you know. But that the early like
The
Prohibition.
banning of substances.
Yeah,
pretty much,
but like alcohol prohibition specifically, the earliest records of prohibition of alcohol date back to the Jia dynasty in China, and it was 2070 BC to 1600 BC. So for a huge point, you can drink it there. The early 20th century saw prohibition in a lot of countries, including Canada, which was pretty short-lived here. The Faroe Islands, Russian Empire, Soviet Union, Iceland. In Iceland, beer was prohibited until 1989. Isn't that insane?
Just beer,
Just
not
beer.
drinking though, right?
Just beer.
That's so weird.
And it was prohibited, and this is like again early 1900s. But Norway, there was prohibition. Hungarian Soviet Republic, Finland, and the U.S. had their prohibition, which was I think what we think of when we think of the word prohibition from 1920 to 1933. But even in PEI, so the rest of Canada was different province for province basis, but PEI had a prohibition in effect from 1907 to 1948.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? No alcohol. And I mean, obviously, there's still, like, underground alcohol, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, like, that lasted way longer than the prohibition in the U.S., you know?
People just love banning stuff. Even when we did, again, the coffee episode, we were like, oh, so England banned coffee at various points in its history.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
even Russia banned it because they thought it was taking away from their alcohol sales. Their homegrown export of alcohol and corruption.
That's how
But with beer, man, it was like people. You have to use barley, right? So people were using like grains that could be used for food, and so like at that point, I can see like if you don't have a lot of crops, right? So you're taking food away from people to make beer, which was something that is like it's kind of like a leisure thing. It's not something you strive to make, you know.
Right. And I mean, when did the Great Depression happen? Is that around that time as well?
29?
Yeah, exactly. So, like, especially towards the end of this prohibition, I mean, at a time, obviously, when your life is shit, you want to just drink to forget about it, but at the same time, you have to be like, well, what do I spend my money on? What do I put my crops
that's
towards?
it,
You know what I mean? Like, you can't afford something like that, you know? Even if you are just making moonshine and stuff, like, it's a waste of your time when you could be farming to feed your family who are poor, you know? So, like, it makes sense, you know? What else is here?
Fonz has a timelines of German brewing advances.
Okay.
Yeah, so like the beginnings of like certain styles were born like at a certain point, right? So like your typical like probably lagers, like they started. People wanted a really light, clean, easy drinking beer. So at that point, like what was it, Industrial Revolution? People actually having refrigerators, so you can now brew at a colder temperature,
Right.
slower, so you don't end up with like a 10% beer that's super dark, right? People, it was like a weapon designed for a purpose, you know. People want to drink, like Germans, they wanted to have like 6, you know, in one session. So you want 5% beers, right? So so at that time we were talking about the Reinheitsgebot. That was like it was pretty much in a sense kind of like prohibition. They had to stop. People were getting crazy with like their brewing methods, right? So they're throwing all sorts of random shit in their beer, and not necessarily being good for people, you know, just like people dunking in more alcohol than needed, right? So
Especially
and
when
a
you
lot of
have
people
a
getting sick.
region that is like the Champagne region, they take their shit really seriously.
Yeah,
Right.
and so you need regulations. So that was that. So 1516, was it Bavaria or Germany? They narrowed it down. They restricted brewers to 3 ingredients: so malt, barley, water, and hop. That's like essentially what we have today.
But that's like even more strict than the Bavarian Purity Act.
Yeah, but yeah, that was the Bavarian Purity Act. They didn't want people throwing like rye in there. You know, you had to use like malted barley. But it's changed now. Yeah. What
It's
else
like
came
a-
from that though? Like Pilsners. Like Pilsner's like so expensive to make, like super difficult.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is it so expensive to make?
Just because the methods, because you need to brew it cold.
So it's like a beer that they couldn't even physically brew up to a certain point.
Without science, you couldn't achieve
Science.
Pilsner.
Okay, so I mean, we know we touched on where beer came from to a certain extent. You know, obviously this is an hour-long podcast. We can't talk about every single thing in the world, but we will post some more interesting things on our Facebook page once this comes up. You know, so we talked about where it was at. We touched on prohibition. I mean, prohibition exists still in countries around the world, especially mostly for religious reasons. But I mean, it still exists around the world.
What
you know?
countries have? I'm just gonna like throw that out. What countries still have banned beer?
Bangladesh and Brunei ban it due to the Islamic faith, but you can still purchase it if you're not a Muslim, which is a weird, tricky thing.
Yes.
Some states in India prohibit it because of religious reasons. The Maldives is banning it now, but they allow foreigners to consume it. But they actually X-ray your bags as you're coming and going at the airport to see if you have alcohol, to see if you're trying to smuggle it into the country, which is crazy. It's banned in numerous West Asian countries like Iran, Yemen, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait. And something that's really interesting to me, and it even exists in certain states in the U.S. still, that during and before election time, alcohol can't be served.
You can't serve. Yeah. You
So,
can't serve
like, you
alcohol,
can consume it if you bought it in advance, but you can't buy it at, like, a bar during that time.
There are dry counties and stuff in the States.
Yeah, which is crazy. Like,
Or like, yeah, in my hometown, you couldn't buy alcohol on a Sunday.
really? Wow. That's crazy. It's just, like, that weird local legislature. And I think...
But
I
even
assume-
here, still, like, now you can't buy beer after 6 on a Sunday.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just...
And I mean, I assume, too, especially, like, as you get...
Only during church hours.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I
day of
assume there's
rest.
like a religious element to it to a certain extent. Like, if there's like a huge, say, and I don't know all the time about religion, but like a huge Mormon population or something. You know what I mean? Maybe that'll affect like the
Oh, absolutely.
There's all
region.
the goddamn Baptists.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like tons of Baptists and stuff. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you look at the history of beer too, though. But it was just like God is good. It was like when people had that spiritual, that first beer, you were intoxicated. But people, like I don't know, monastic brewing was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, this is a godly experience. You're closer to God
Yeah.
in that sense, right?
So
So
we're
is that
not-
it? Like, why do you think people love beer so much?
It was inspired actually by, like one of the big monastic brewers was inspired by Jesus' time in the wilderness.
Huh.
And how like Jesus and other disciples who like going into the wilderness was a big part. And like they almost described it as like a spirit quest where they would eat these grains and things and like have these sort of visions. And that's why people sort of got into the whole...
It's a peyote trip type of thing.
Peyote.
Yeah.
So where do we think beer is going to next? Like, do you see like a trend evolving, taking shape right now in brewing?
Yeah, well, like actually, to answer the question before, though, it was
Right.
just like where beer came from, like why it was popularized. It was just like communities of people just like banding together, like tribes, just
Right.
randomly now just brewing, and just like people were getting drunk. And just like these godly experiences, and just people wanted to talk to each other, and that's kind of like.
Well, I guess that's like the biggest thing with beer. I mean, that's the big like social factor of it. Is it
Girls.
always,
It's community, yeah.
Well,
People,
it's
like,
community,
wanna
right?
talk
It
to
brings
each
people
other,
together.
yeah.
It's like that's why people go down to like the local pub all the time.
Even
and,
like the
that's why
micro
there's-
brewing community. You know,
Yeah,
you
they
see
all
these
they all
craft
show
beers
up.
and
They all
stuff.
interested in the same thing. They show up and they have a pint, and it's
Yeah.
not about like getting drunk even necessarily.
No,
or
it's
like
to socialize.
It's
you know?
the social aspect of drinking, right? And
Yeah.
beer, I think, is a big part
Which
of
is
that.
it's funny because like even when you go to like a social gathering for something else, like when you go to like an outdoor comic book festival or something, there's always a beer tent.
There's
Yeah.
beer,
Like it will never not be beer.
Yeah,
There's that
beer,
common ground.
Beer is the
Yeah.
standard.
Yeah,
Beer really
absolutely.
is the standard in life.
Oh hey, you guys drinking?
Yeah.
Oh, what are you drinking, man? Yeah.
So what do you see? What do you see happening with beer right now?
So
Like,
right now, a lot of people are taking notice. It's kind of like a wine culture. It's a lot more
I see that.
accessible to people.
yeah,
People aren't like, I don't know, you don't have to spend $30 on a bottle of beer. You know,
Right.
You can sit down, buy a $9 beer, age it for a year, and then that becomes something worth talking about.
Not
later on.
quite too
but really,
common.
like, is
but-
it? Do people do that? Though?
Not a
like,
Tutankhamun,
I don't.
no.
Even, I
You
never
could
even
sit
think
on it.
about that. Like, do people age like a $9 bottle of beer?
Absolutely, you're gonna probably see that coming like next couple of years in bars.
I think even the Game of Thrones beer, like just collectible beers, like something when you take like a limited edition, anything like
Small batch.
small batch anything
brewing,
has
you know,
always
yeah.
been like a sort of subculture, but it's been sort of elitist.
Yeah.
Like it becoming more accessible, or something that was marketed as like, hey guys, we're releasing like 10,000 of this.
Yeah, yeah.
Save it.
But if you aged a beer for a year, does it really affect the taste a lot?
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Like honestly, like like I want to kind of like think about like Chimay, something like that. Like that beer, super dark, really harsh. Like not actually too harsh. They're actually one of the better ones. But like that alcohol has a bite to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once you age it, you kind of get like it opens up. It becomes less sharp. You get a little less carbonation, but more flavor. You're gonna end up with stuff like you're gonna get like applesauce notes or something like that.
I would have
like the
never
malt
thought of
opens
aging
up.
beer like that.
Honestly,
No.
yeah.
Never. And like, are you aging it just in the fridge still? Or are you just leaving it out?
Okay, so the same thing like wine. You kind of want to
Cool,
keep it,
dark.
cool, dark place, like something consistent temperature. Like honestly, another thing you can talk about right now with beer, it's like when you look at a bottle, like you look at most beer bottles and they're like the glass is like really dark, right? So that's for purpose because like
Right.
hops are light sensitive.
Huh.
Yeah,
So-
I heard that. Like, I went on the Steam Whistle tour, and they were saying about how the beer completely changes its taste the second its sunlight hits it.
Absolutely,
They keep
yeah.
everything completely dark. They put it in the box dark, and the second it hits light, it's a
That's when
different flavor.
it starts
That's
changing.
crazy. I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Absolutely. So it takes like you can taint a beer by just leaving it out in the sun.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Like you look at big stuff like Corona. You ever see Corona like tasting skunky? Like I'm sure you've
Absolutely.
seen it.
Yeah.
Moosehead. Absolutely. Like
Heineken, especially.
oh for sure, man. Yeah, the green glass.
Yeah.
It's not keeping up. It's not keeping that light up, but
had
they
no idea
present
that's what I
it.
was
See, and I feel the same about Steam Whistle. Is that's another beer that just like if you hold on to it for too long.
Brutal.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
But it's good steam. Well, I love it when it's like really, really
At the
fresh
brewery.
at
oh my
the
god.
brewery.
Yeah.
Like,
I can't.
oh,
I
it
can't
tastes
stress
different
that
than
enough.
anything else. It
Fresh
tastes
beer is
so
the best
good.
beer, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why craft beer, when you taste it, you know it's fresh. It's good. It hasn't sat on a boat
No.
coming to you. You know.
It tastes like a steam whistle the day it was brewed type of thing. It tastes like a big glass of water after a hot
goes
day.
down
Like,
so easy.
So
Yeah.
smooth. It just tastes.
What do the steam whistles are? I don't know. I've never
Oh.
done that.
It's
I've
such
done
a
it,
good
do it.
day.
Yeah.
It is a fun day.
It's changed a little bit.
free.
It used to be a lot easier to go get like multiple beers there,
Yeah.
but I feel like the Blue Jays home crowd kind of fucked that up for everybody.
You go on a
Yeah.
slow day and you chat them up a little bit.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
will drink all day.
They're
and
more
have
inclined
such
to give you a
oh,
couple brews,
They are
yeah.
so bored. It's a bunch of it's like 10 bored bartenders
Yeah.
who are
Actors.
like, please,
Yo, man.
unemployed actors.
Pro tip: they do a tour every hour on the hour. Go there like 5 minutes after they start the tour. You drink for 55 minutes. you know?
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah.
After the tour, they get a couple beers. Pro tips.
Pro tip
tip.
brought to you
Oh.
by Amazing Things Podcast.
I'd like to make another pro tip on that. I went to their they do a big hiring process where they just bring in tons of people, and it's this scene where you're all in a room. There's a pig trough full of ice and beer, and they encourage you to go get whatever you want. And their hiring process is entirely improv skits. So it's a volunteer basis, if you're comfortable. And I sat there and I'd have a beer, and every time it was I was that guy who's oh, tap out, I'm in. Every time I'd my first move would be to walk up to the beer, use it as a prop, open one, and be "Duh-ba-duh," and then tap out and go hide in my chair. I did not get the job, but I got drunk.
You know what
That's
they
the
do at
important
I saw them do this at the Steam Whistle Brewery one time. Okay, they do this bet with people where they can pour an entire pitcher of beer into a regulation frisbee. It fits perfectly into
That's
a
crazy.
regulation frisbee.
What? I had no
No one
idea.
will ever believe you at a bar or anywhere else, but you can win some money with that type of bet.
Whoa,
Life
that's
hacks.
amazing.
Life
I
hacks.
am totally going to bet people with
Yeah.
that. That's awesome.
Regulation frisbee of an entire
Where
pitcher
does
of
one
beer.
get a regulation? How do I know if a frisbee is not regulation?
I have no
Could.
idea.
You can go to Cook.
Yeah.
Check that out.
If it
online.
says Nerf, it's not.
not. No.
Let's do favorite beers.
Yeah,
Around
we're
the
running out
room.
of time here. What are your favorite beers, guys?
Galen.
Anything in a green bottle or green can. I don't know why.
Really?
I just,
You are wearing a green shirt right now.
I just
Not easy being
I
Galen.
can't even think of brands particular. Just people we want to pick you up. I don't know, something green. And
What's your
And it's
success?
worked so
What's
far.
your success rate on that?
pretty
I
good.
guess it's Moosehead,
Moosehead, Steam Whistles, Keys.
Yeah,
They're
okay.
all
They're all
accept
green.
them all.
Heineken.
Yeah. Anything green.
All right, Spencer.
I don't know. I really like stouts. Not during the summer though. Not when it's hot. But I love stouts. I like a thick, good thick beer, dark beer like that. But when it's like hot, like this kind of weather, I mean, generally in the summer I drink a lot of cider. But I like pilsners. I like lighter beers when it's summertime. I don't like when things are really like have a bitterness to them. I don't like really super hoppy beers. Like I don't like IPAs or anything like that. I can't take it. I mean, I can drink it, like I can sip out a bottle, but I can never have like a bunch of those in the night.
I bought a growler of that IPA, the unfiltered IPA.
Can't
before.
do it.
Blow your taste buds out.
Gave it
I
away.
can't do it. And I know people that like drink it, like just guzzle that stuff, and I just can't wrap my head around it.
Fonz?
For me, pretty much same page there, like porters and lagers. So like we
Yeah.
like that malty taste.
exactly.
Just like a little bit of sweetness, but goes down nice and crisp.
And I don't mind like a bit of like a fruitiness to a beer now and then too, as long as they do it
Fair
well.
enough,
As long as it
yeah.
doesn't taste like an artificial like this
Yeah.
is strawberries. Like
Yeah,
no, it's
no.
not. But like when
Yeah.
it's like a natural kind of fruitiness to it, a
Absolutely,
little bit, I
yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
I like a stock ale as a general go-to.
Yeah.
The Mill Street, Mill Street stock ale. The Molson stock is nice too.
Nice.
But then in the summer, I go to the Granville Island Hefeweizen,
Oh,
which
pretty
is
good.
just like
Wheat
when
beers,
it's when
man.
it's real
Yeah.
real cold. Those wheat beers are pretty
Quenches the
good.
thirst like
Yeah.
no other.
I really like. I could drink a ton of Blanche de Chambly as well.
Yeah,
Honestly,
okay.
yeah.
Good
Anything from
summer beer.
Unibrew, like
Yeah.
phenomenal, like that.
And then I think the Kronenberg in the blue bottle,
The
Yeah.
Blanc,
the Blanc,
Blanc,
yeah, Kronenberg Blanc
Yeah.
is a big like. That's my.
Yeah.
Oh, girl, I'm
Go
gonna
to
make you
the
think
place
I went to college when I drink this beer.
I love like Steam Whistle because of the brewery and because I've been there a bunch of times and had a bunch of amazing beers there and memories where it's like, oh, this beer right now,
Yeah.
this
They're
one right
good people
here.
making good beer,
Yeah,
man.
just
Like,
fucking good.
Yeah.
And also for like a cheap fucking tall can, low and brow, it's the best beer. It's
nice
awesome.
import. Yeah.
For I don't know, for I love Bose. Bose
Yeah.
is good.
Those is great.
It's a good go to. And something cheap like PBR.
Yeah, I mean like
Probably.
PBR. I feel like I drink a lot of PBR. I drink a lot of Anchor Steam.
Yeah.
I drink a lot of what else was I gonna say? But cheap beers like that. But I never think of it as like necessarily like my
No.
favorite beer. But it's like the one that I for sure consume. The
Although
most.
I've had
Yeah.
like there's
like
a
Facts. I drink Facts a
See,
lot. It's not even
I
beer,
usually
but
go for the.
I drink because there's a Viking on it.
yeah.
When I want to drink like a bunch of beers, I go for the Duggan's Sriracha Lager.
Oh
Interesting.
fuck! I love
Yeah.
Duggan Sriracha.
It's
lager.
only
I
like
can
a
drink that.
4.5%,
Yeah, totally.
and they're like a smaller
But you
bottle.
can pound them.
But you go
Yeah.
through a 6-pack in
Drink
like
that
an
all day.
hour.
They're great. It tastes good too. I like Duggan's. They're good company.
What about you, Ian?
I like wheat beer a lot. Like Blanche de Chambly is really good.
Yeah.
Old Dark is really
Mhm.
good.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I just drink cider though.
Yeah, cider's great for me in the summer. I like.
Great summer
I
beer.
like. I go for a
Summer
pear
beer.
cider though. Pear cider over apple
If you
cider.
guys like ciders, I know a lot of them are really sweet.
Yeah.
Every now and then, Granville Island puts out something called the Ginger Ninja,
Okay.
Oh yeah, man.
and it is like it's more of like
Oh, I was at a party the other day. I saw someone drink
a
that.
ginger added to a beer
Yeah.
versus
I don't like ginger though. Like I can't drink. Like, do you like ginger beers?
no, they're too sweet.
Yeah,
They're way
I
too
can.
sweet.
I can
but
sip
this
at
one,
it.
this
like
one's
that
like a really
Krabby or
malty
Krabby or
beer
whatever it's called.
that just has like a sort of essence of
We'll give it a
ginger.
shot.
It's really good, and it's available now, but not for long.
Yeah, maybe grab some
Oh.
more then.
Yeah,
Shit.
it's a fun bottle too.
Yeah, it
There's
is.
Ninja stars all over it.
Yeah, I saw it in my
It's the
fridge
one
at a
rare
house party,
ninja,
and it's
the
like, do I
chosen
just
one.
steal someone's beer right now? Because I kind of want to try this. I just
Yeah.
have like a 6-pack of like Sapporo here. Can I have this instead? I like Sapporo too. Actually, I forgot to give that a shout out.
Yeah, shout out to Sapporo. Shout out to their new like snow cone filter beer,
Whoa,
Never
where
seen
it's
that.
like
No
it's like
way.
a pint, but the
Yeah.
foam is actually kind of like
Ice.
almost like Cool Whip,
Yeah.
What?
where it can keep your beer frozen
Yeah.
for like 2
Pours-
hours, and
How
then
do
you
you-
just scoop it out and
How do
drink
you,
it.
how do you
That's
get
epic.
this? Like, is it something you can only get at a bar?
I saw it at like an izakaya somewhere, the
Oh,
one on
makes sense.
Dundas near
Huh.
Bay.
Cool.
Okay,
Amazing.
Yeah.
very beard.
I think this is our beer episode.
Ew, I think it was our beer episode.
Yay!
Feels
Cheers.
good, man.
Cheers for
Cheers.
Cheers for
Cheers.
beers.
Fonz, thanks for coming on. Ian, I congratulate you on speaking more.
You guys are
That's
wicked.
impressive. But yeah, thank you for coming all the way down. You guys at home, let us know what your favorite beer is. You can rate us on iTunes, subscribe, whatever. Follow us on Twitter.
The Twitter.
At Amazing Things with 3 S's. Like us on Facebook. And stay tuned next week. We're going to do an episode on cosplay. Pretty exciting, right?
Amazing.
I know nothing about cosplay.
Amazing things.
Cosplayers, when I go to like a Comic-Con with people I see, I'm like, I wish I was that rad.
Who is that person
You know?
who's
So,
in my dreams?
We're excited about
I've
it.
only ever seen
Get out of my
cosplay
dreams
on like
and in my car.
xvideos.com. So
Next week on Amazing Things!
Man, I want that shepherd costume.
You have been listening to Amazing... Oh, no, listen up! You have been listening to Amazing Things Podcast.
this is Walter Cronkite. And also maybe Richard Nixon. This has been Amazing Things.